Today is Wednesday, May 27th, 2015. This rant will be on the Irish vote for gay marriage and on immigration reform. The first thing on the Irish vote, Ireland was the first country ever to vote for gay marriage. They did it overwhelmingly with 62% of the vote. There was a high turnout. Over 60% of those that could vote voted, and that it had a majority in, let's just call it counties, in every single county in Ireland outside of one. I believe that also was obviously heavily influenced by the young vote. But let's take a quick look at Ireland. Ireland has been a predominantly Catholic country for hundreds of years. And I believe they were a colony of England for about 800 years. They gained their independence in 1921. They really had no industry. They had nothing. They had no governing. They were basically a third world country, I believe, until maybe the early 60s or so. They started investing heavily in education in the 70s, and we had the Celtic Tiger that was created after that, whereas European companies, American companies, were able to get a lot of highly educated work staff in Ireland, both for manufacturing and for service-related things, because they spoke English. They were highly educated. Obviously, there were some tax benefits of doing it, and Ireland took off in terms of economics. They suffered terribly from the 2008 Great Recession, and also they had real trouble with the with the euro in terms of how they dealt with their debt, which they cleaned up, which really wasn't their fault at all. But needless to say, they overwhelmingly voted for gay marriage. And the question is, where does that portend in the upcoming 2016 election here, and how does it portend for the Republicans? The Republicans are gnawing on two different areas. They're gnawing on it should be the state should decide what it should be, and then of course you have Ted Cruz, who's completely on the opposite spectrum, that he wants a constitutional amendment to define marriage as only between one man and a woman. Can't have the Supreme Court making this decision. A lot of ways, a lot of Republican operatives, a lot of Republican lobbyists, etc., would really like the Supreme Court to okay gay marriage so that it won't be an issue in 2016, because they can say, oh, well, the Supreme Court has already decided that. But then again, you have two other things. You got Michael Huckabee, who says, there's a difference between the Supreme Court and the Supreme Being, which means he's already determined what the Supreme Being wants, even though the Supreme Being hasn't told me. So that will be an issue. I just said Huckabee would be, and also in terms of the two states that are going to have the first thing, Iowa and South Carolina, the Christian conservatives, the right conservatives, are indicating very, very clearly that they will not vote for any Republican candidate that does not clearly come out with defining marriages between one man and one woman. So the Republicans could be in a heck of a lot of trouble. Not trouble, but they can't play that fine line where they have to cater to their base right there and then come back out in the general election and say, oh, I was just sort of faking that thing. They're going to have to get pretty definitive. And they've been trying a lot of different things to say. It should be decided by the states, that type of thing. I'm going to defer to what the Supreme Court has to say, but it still could be a very, very big issue in the upcoming election. And they're not stupid. They're much smarter than me. They know the winds have changed. They put their little finger to the wind. They know that it's a gale force wind going in the opposite direction of what they want. But they still have to get the nomination first. So that's going to be really, really tough. So we'll see how this plays out. And, with up to as many as 15 people possibly running, whoever can bark the loudest and get the most attention is going to drive everyone further to the right, it seems like. So we'll have to see where that plays out. Now, the next thing was the immigration reform, where an appeals court yesterday agreed with the lower court 2-1 that Obama couldn't put his immigration reform into play, whereas he would allow let's just say people to get driver's licenses, green cards, and that they would only go after high level people who really shouldn't be in the United States, people who are criminals, et cetera, et cetera. Don't want to get into all the particulars of the case, but the Republicans have always been saying this is about the lawlessness of Obama. This is about the overreach of Obama. It has nothing to do with immigration reform. But everyone who's on the immigration reform thing are going, it has everything to do with immigration reform, because you're not doing it because of lawlessness. You're just doing it to hold immigration reform back, because all you want to have is, 5 fences, 16 moats, armed guards like a Stalin, not like a Stalin, Stalag 17, something like that, on the fences there to prevent anyone coming in, so that in 2090 we can talk about allowing people to stay here that had immigrated before. And in one way, it's not going to be a big issue for all the conservatives, because they don't want immigration reform in the first place. But the question is, they're becoming less and less in the general election, and Hispanics and those who favor comprehensive immigration reform are becoming more and more in the elections. And this is going to cut out anything in terms of anyone wanting to vote for Republicans, because they have not shown one iota that they are even concerned about Hispanics, Latinos, however you want to call it, immigration reform. They'll talk about immigration reform. They'll talk about securing the borders. They'll talk about, we want to be compassionate to all those who are here. We want them to come out of the shadows, but they won't come out with any policies. And this will be a big issue in this upcoming election. So we have two things that are going on right now that do not bode well for the Republicans. Do not know if the Republicans can actually find a way around this in the general election. And it bodes into the 4 things that I think are going to be the big things, and there may be one more. The 2 that we just talked about, gay marriage, immigration reform, and then the third thing, climate change, which Bernie Sanders talked about eloquently yesterday as he threw his hat into the ring for the Democratic nomination for president. And then the 4th thing, Bernie Sanders deserves a whole other thing. And then the 4th thing, that would be the minimum wage, which will also be a big thing, which will be a big driver of bringing people out to the election, to having people vote in this upcoming election. And if I would bring in one other thing, it could be some foreign affairs, but we will see what is going on in Iraq, in Syria, in Yemen, in Libya, how it's portrayed in the media. And of course, the Republicans will downplay, will try and rewrite history in terms of George Bush's involvement in the Iraq War and getting rid of Saddam Hussein, as they try and sugarcoat everything bad that happened while George Bush was president, and just mock Obama incessantly. And then if Hillary's the candidate, indicate that she was lockstep in line with this. So those 2 things that I mentioned today, immigration reform, gay marriage, do not look good for the Republicans. We'll see what type of talking point they'll come up with that to try and let's just say appease their base and still work for the general election. And then the 2 other things, climate change and the minimum wage. Don't see the Republicans gaining new votes by being against both of those things. Time will tell.